When Teddy Swims walked onto the stage of the Kelly Clarkson show that Thursday morning, few in the audience could have predicted that the episode would end in one of the most talked-about moments of daytime television in years. Known for his soulful voice, disarming honesty, and signature look, tattoos sprawling down his arms, a thick beard framing his face, and an aura that manages to be both approachable and enigmatic, Swims has built a reputation as one of music's fastest-rising stars. For many fans, his appearance on Kelly Clarkson's show was not only expected, but eagerly awaited. It was supposed to be a celebratory moment, a beloved new artist sitting across from a veteran performer and daytime host, swapping stories about music, life, and the whirlwind of fame. The set that day carried the usual warmth of Clarkson's production. The soft glow of studio lights bathed the audience in a golden hue. Behind the stage, a backdrop of pastel blues and yellows mirrored the upbeat tone that the Kelly Clarkson show has cultivated since its debut in 2019. Clarkson herself, dressed in a floral maxi dress with a denim jacket thrown over her shoulders, greeted fans with her usual self-effacing charm. There was laughter, applause, and even a few tears as she performed a short, Kellyoke, segment to open the show. For Kelly, the day was routine. The show has long served as a platform for both emerging and established artists to connect with audiences in a casual, unscripted environment. In the past, she had welcomed singers from every genre, country legends, pop icons, indie newcomers, balancing star power with relatability. Teddy Swims, however, represented something unique. Unlike many artists who appear on the show primarily to promote a new record, Swims was at a turning point in his career, straddling the line between underground sensation and mainstream staple. Born Jaden Dimsdale in Conyers, Georgia, Swims spent years honing his craft in cover bands and uploading soulful renditions of pop hits to YouTube before breaking through with his genre-defying sound. He doesn't fit neatly into one category. His voice slides effortlessly from gravelly R&B to gospel-tinged ballads, with touches of country and rock folded in. By 2025, he had already earned platinum records, a sold-out world tour, and the admiration of industry veterans. Yet, despite his success, Swims often positioned himself as an outsider, someone unwilling to conform to the carefully packaged image that the music industry sometimes demands. This tension, between authenticity and marketability, between individuality and conformity, was one of the very themes Clarkson intended to explore during the interview. After all, Kelly herself had walked that path. As the winner of the inaugural season of American Idol, she knew firsthand how the machinery of fame could both elevate and suffocate an artist. It was this shared experience of navigating authenticity in a demanding industry that made the conversation seem promising. At first, everything went according to plan. Teddy walked onto the stage to raucous applause, flashing a shy smile as Kelly rose from her chair to hug him. The two exchanged pleasantries. Clarkson praised his latest single, noting the emotional depth in his lyrics and the vulnerability he brings to his performances. Swims responded with gratitude, his voice carrying the mix of humility and swagger that his fans know so well. The audience leaned in, eager to hear about his creative process, his journey from Georgia bars to international stages, and the personal stories that inspired his songs. But beneath the cheerful surface, there was a subtle current of unease. Viewers at home may not have noticed it at first, but those in the studio sensed that something about Swims' demeanor was slightly different from other guests. His answers were slower, more measured. At moments, he seemed to bristle at certain questions, his body language tightening when Clarkson pressed him about topics like fame, commercial pressures, and the sacrifices artists make for success. Kelly, ever the professional, attempted to keep the conversation light, but the dynamic was shifting. Part of the challenge was that both artists are, in their own way, outspoken. Kelly Clarkson is celebrated for her candidness, her willingness to discuss difficult personal experiences, from her divorce to her struggles with weight and self-image, in front of millions. She rarely sugarcoats, preferring honesty to diplomacy. Teddy Swims, too, has built his identity around radical vulnerability. His music often draws from raw personal experiences, and in interviews, he doesn't shy away from revealing uncomfortable truths. Put the two together in a high-stakes setting, and what might have been a heart-to-heart could easily veer into tension. Still, in those opening minutes, no one expected things to escalate. The audience clapped politely as Teddy performed a stripped-down version of his hit ballad, accompanied by a guitarist perched on a stool beside him. His voice soared, cracking with emotion in all the right places. Clarkson nodded along, visibly moved, even mouthing the words during the chorus. The performance ended with a standing ovation, and for a brief moment, it seemed as though the episode would proceed as expected, a touching celebration of artistry and mutual respect. Yet as the interview resumed, the atmosphere began to shift again. Kelly, perhaps emboldened by the intimacy of the performance, steered the conversation toward deeper waters. She asked about the cost of vulnerability, how Swims handled criticism, whether he ever felt exploited by an industry eager to commodify his pain. Teddy paused before answering, his eyes fixed on the floor, his fingers drumming against the armrest of his chair. When he finally spoke, his tone carried an edge that hadn't been present before. He acknowledged the pressures, but there was a bite of defensiveness in his words, as if he felt misunderstood or cornered. Kelly pressed further, not out of malice, but out of genuine curiosity. The exchange, however, was beginning to feel less like a friendly chat and more like a confrontation. Audience members shifted in their seats. Some exchanged nervous glances. The tension was palpable, even if no one could yet imagine where it would lead. What had started as a celebration of music was turning into something else entirely, something raw, unpredictable, and precariously balanced on the edge of collapse. And then, in what would become the defining moment of the episode, Teddy's composure began to fray. His answers grew shorter, his gaze hardened. Kelly, sensing the shift, attempted to pivot, but the momentum had already changed. Within minutes, the interview would spiral into a heated clash that no one, least of all Kelly Clarkson herself, had anticipated. But before that breaking point, there was silence, the kind of silence that falls just before a storm, heavy with electricity, taut with expectation. In that stillness, the line between artist and audience, between honesty and spectacle, began to blur. The calm before the clash was over. The shift from friendly banter to confrontation was so gradual that at first, it hardly registered. Kelly Clarkson leaned forward in her chair, her voice warm but insistent, asking Teddy Swims what it meant to put so much of himself into his music. "Do you ever feel like people expect you to bleed for them, over and over again?" she asked, gesturing with open palms. "Because I've been there. I've felt that pressure." The question was empathetic, even vulnerable, but it landed differently for Teddy. His shoulders tensed. His smile, so effortless when he walked on stage, flickered into something taut and guarded. He paused for a long moment, the studio lights glinting off the rings on his fingers as he rubbed his hands together. When he finally spoke, his voice carried a low rumble, steadier than his eyes suggested. "Sometimes I feel like people don't just want the music," he said. "They want the pain. They want me to relive every bad thing I've ever been through so they can feel something. And honestly, it wears me down." The audience murmured sympathetically. Kelly nodded, perhaps sensing that he was on the edge of something profound. But instead of letting the silence breathe, she pushed forward. "But don't you think that's part of the gift?" she countered gently. "That you can take that pain and turn it into something that heals others." It was here that the atmosphere shifted unmistakably. Teddy's jaw tightened. He leaned back in his chair, arms crossed, not in casual comfort, but in defense. "That's easy to say," he replied, his tone sharpening. "You've had the kind of career where you can take breaks, step back, and still be Kelly Clarkson. But for me, if I stop giving people what they want, I disappear. I don't get to just walk away and still have a stage waiting for me." A ripple went through the crowd. Kelly blinked, clearly caught off guard by the edge in his voice. For a moment, she looked less like a host and more like a fellow artist stung by the suggestion. "I know what it's like to feel used by this industry," she said firmly, her smile fading. "Don't assume I've had it easy just because my name is known." That was the spark. The temperature in the room spiked, invisible but undeniable. Teddy leaned forward, his hands clasped, his voice rising. "With all respect, Kelly, you don't know my life. You don't know what it's like to be told you're not marketable because you don't fit some image. To be told to lose weight, shave your beard, cover your tattoos, sing, radio friendly. Every step of the way, I've been told I'm too much of this or not enough of that. And now, when I finally make it here, I'm asked to justify whether I'm breaking myself for the audience. It's exhausting." Gasps echoed across the studio. The tension was no longer subtle. It was a living, breathing thing, pressing against everyone in the room. Kelly's face flushed, her southern warmth hardening into steel. She had spent years fighting battles of her own. Against record executives, against tabloid narratives, against the weight of public expectation. Perhaps it was empathy, or perhaps pride, but she couldn't leave his words unanswered. "You think I haven't heard the same things?" She shot back, her voice louder than before. "I've been told my whole career that I don't fit the mold. That I wasn't thin enough, that I wasn't polished enough, that I was too real for pop music. And I still showed up. I still gave everything I had because I knew my fans needed it. That's not the industry using you, that's the calling of an artist." The audience erupted in a mix of applause and awkward silence, torn between admiration for Kelly's candor and discomfort at the raw exchange. The cameras caught Teddy's expression tightening further, his eyes narrowing as if weighing whether to hold back or let the frustration pour out. He chose the latter. "Maybe that works for you," he said, his voice cutting through the noise. "But I didn't come here to be lectured about what it means to be an artist. I came here to share my story, not to have it compared or dismissed. I respect you, Kelly, but right now I don't feel respected back." The room fell still. Kelly opened her mouth as if to respond. But the moment had already reached its tipping point. Teddy pushed himself up from his chair, the scrape of the seat legs echoing across the set like a thunderclap. The audience gasped collectively, some clutching their hands to their mouths. "Maybe we should end this here," he muttered, half to Kelly, half to himself. His microphone picked up the tremor in his voice, a mixture of anger and hurt. Without another glance, he turned and strode toward the wings. The camera crew scrambled, unsure whether to cut to commercial or keep rolling. Kelly remained seated for a moment, her face a mixture of shock and disbelief. She reached out a hand instinctively, calling after him. "Teddy, wait," but he didn't. His broad figure disappeared past the curtains, leaving the stage hollow in his absence. The applause sign lit up, urging the audience to react, but most sat frozen, stunned by what they had just witnessed. The producers rushed onto the set, whispering urgently into Kelly's ear. She straightened, smoothed her dress, and forced a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Well," she said into the microphone, her voice wavering only slightly, "live television, y'all. You never know what's going to happen." The audience laughed nervously, though the tension lingered in the air like smoke after a fire. Cameras cut to commercial, but the damage was done. In those few minutes, a carefully choreographed daytime talk show had spiraled into something raw, unscripted, and unforgettable. Backstage, witnesses later reported, Teddy refused to return to the set. He was seen pacing the hallway, visibly upset, before leaving the studio altogether. Clarkson, meanwhile, pressed on with the remainder of the show, interviewing the next guest with practiced poise. Yet those who were present said her demeanor remained subdued, her usual spark dimmed by the weight of what had transpired. By the time the episode aired later that day, social media had already erupted. Clips circulated across Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok, each angle fueling debates. Was Teddy overreacting? Was Kelly too harsh? Was it genuine conflict or a staged moment for ratings? Whatever the truth, one fact was undeniable. Both artists had laid themselves bare, and the world had watched the breaking point unfold in real time. The walk-off wasn't just a television moment. It was a cultural one.